Hey everybody, I am Chris Baker from Lucky Gunner. Let's talk about the future of revolvers. If you are a double action revolver fan like me, it might feel like innovation is kind of stagnant these days. We keep getting variations of the same basic designs that were already pretty good decades ago. Another steel frame 6-shot 357, another aluminum J-frame 38. As much as I've enjoyed these guns over the years, how many variations on the same theme do we really need? Now, you might say this stagnation is because revolvers are just antiquated technology. If you want something modern, just get a semi-automatic. And you might have a point, but you could make that same argument about lots of other firearm categories. Take bolt-action rifles, for example. Sure, they're obsolete as military infantry rifles, but they still have plenty of other uses, and they've seen tremendous innovation in recent years. New materials, new cartridges, chassis systems, modern features integrated into classic designs. So where are the modern 21st century revolvers? The industry showed us some potential, but they kind of dropped the ball just when things were getting interesting. Let's take a look at an example. This is a Smith & Wesson Model 386. It's an L frame, so the same dimensions as the medium-sized 686. They made a few different versions. This one is the 386 SCS, a 7-shot 357 Magnum with a 2.5-inch barrel built on a lightweight aluminum scandium frame with a steel cylinder. It weighs just 21.2 ounces unloaded. For comparison, that is lighter than a steel J-frame Model 60. This gun represents a lot of promise in what a modern concealed carry revolver could be. Lightweight materials, increased capacity, adjustable sights. Some of the other versions even had night sights. Smith & Wesson first made this gun in 2007. The last 386 was retired in 2012. Today, you literally cannot buy a new lightweight medium frame revolver from any manufacturer. This entire category, which should be the sweet spot for modern carry revolver design, simply does not exist anymore. So what happened? Why did revolver makers abandon innovation and retreat to rehashing designs from the 1970s? Well, the early 2000s were brutal for revolver sales. It was the age of the double-stack Wonder 9. To make matters worse, the surplus market was flooded with used duty revolvers, not just from police departments, but federal agencies, prisons, security companies, and foreign militaries. That's a whole lot of cheap revolvers. Why would you want to buy a new one when you could pick up a barely used Model 10 for a couple $100? From a business perspective, it made sense for the industry to pull back their investment into wheel guns. Revolvers are inherently more complicated and more expensive to design and manufacture than polymer striker-fired semi-automatics. When you're looking at a shrinking market, dumping cash into R&D for new revolver designs kind of seems like a waste. But it is not 2005 anymore. The market has completely changed. It might be time for manufacturers to reconsider their assumptions about who is interested in revolvers and why. A lot of shooters have their ARs and their striker-fired 9mm, and now they're looking for something different, something with character. Some shooters are kind of leaning more toward 2011s or PDW-style SBRs, precision rifles, and one of my favorites, semi-auto shotguns. But we're also seeing a renewed interest in well-made traditional firearms with modern features like lever actions, bolt actions, pump actions, and yes, double action revolvers. And it's not just nostalgia or novelty driving this. There are practical advantages to revolvers that become more appealing to some shooters as they gain experience. Their resistance to neglect, for example, the ability to customize the grip, a profile that's maybe less likely to print under a cover garment, the flexibility of having a wide range of ammo selection for a single gun. Semi-autos, of course, are superior in many ways, but there are still some things revolvers do better, and I think more people are coming to appreciate that. So instead of writing off revolvers as a dying market exclusively for traditionalists, manufacturers should be asking, what could a revolver designed from the ground up for 2025 look like? But before we get too deep into that, let's address the elephant in the room. You cannot innovate your way out of basic quality control problems. And right now, the revolver industry has serious QC issues. Taurus used to be the worst offender, but they've cleaned up their act in recent years. They're not perfect, but they've at least acknowledged the issues and they've improved considerably. The other big guys should be ashamed. Smith & Wesson, Ruger, Colt, Kimber, fix the basics first, then we can talk about the cool stuff. Now, assuming we can get past that hurdle, here are some features we should be seeing in modern revolvers. First would be lightweight materials. Now, this isn't what you always want. Sometimes you need good old-fashioned steel to ensure long-term durability or to soak up some recoil, but for EDC or even wilderness defense guns, the advantages are obvious. Nearly all of the aluminum or polymer frame models on the market right now are small frame revolvers. Let's expand that to medium and large frames. Modern sights. At minimum, we need a bright, easily visible front sight with a preferably adjustable, good-sized rear sight notch. There's no reason not to put decent sights on revolvers, but this is somehow still the exception rather than the rule. So I hesitate to ask for anything more than that, but let's also get some modern optic-ready options too. Not Picatinny rails or scope rings, low-profile cuts or plates for micro-dot sights. Taurus is literally the only major manufacturer offering optic plates from the factory. Better triggers. The industry has made some progress here. The Ruger LCR really raised the bar for decent triggers. The Kimbers and the new Colts are pretty good, but there's still room for improvement. Medium and large frame Smith & Wessons can have the best double action triggers in the industry, but only with some work. From the factory, they've been inconsistent at best and often very disappointing. Increased ammo capacity would be nice to see. Of course, there are limits to what's possible with the revolver format, but we have seen some progress. 7 and 8 round cylinders are more common now. I think what we really need is more cartridge options. This could be the real answer to the capacity question. The easiest way to get more capacity is to just use smaller cartridges. How about a 7-shot 32 Magnum in a K-frame, or a lightweight medium frame 22 Magnum with a 9 or even 10-shot cylinder? And while we're at it, figure out why 22 Magnum revolvers are always so unreliable. Innovation doesn't have to be about reinventing the wheel. Some of the best ideas have already been tried. They just need to be executed better or brought back with modern materials and manufacturing. Take the Korth Skyhawk, for example. It was only made for a couple of years, 2017 to 19. It was designed around the shorter cartridge length of 9mm, allowing for a more compact frame. It was an elegant solution to make a more compact carry revolver. But at $1,600 with limited import numbers and minimal holster support, it was doomed to fail. A company with a better understanding of the American concealed carry market should try their own short frame revolver. And I don't mean to restrict these ideas only to defense-oriented revolvers. There are plenty of other innovations for the other segments of the revolver market. Take Dan Wesson's interchangeable barrel system from the 70s and 80s, for example. You could buy a kit that included multiple barrels that you could swap around depending on what you wanted to do with the gun. One gun, multiple configurations. We've seen this happen in the semi-auto world, but it's a brilliant idea that no one has seriously attempted for revolvers since the 80s. And speaking of modularity, what about interchangeable cylinders? Lots of companies used to offer this. Taurus still makes a few models that can switch between 22 long rifle and 22 Magnum or 357 and 9mm. Ruger has some single actions that do this. Why isn't this concept more common? And hey, while we're dreaming big, why not make a kit with multiple cylinders and barrels? And then there is the Chiappa Rhino, easily the most radical revolver design in decades. The barrel fires from the bottom chamber instead of the top, reducing felt recoil and muzzle flip. It's not the first revolver to do this, but it's the first one with some decent commercial success. The execution, unfortunately, is subpar. They're designed like Rube Goldberg machines and frequently have mechanical problems. Maybe there's just not a better way to do it, but I would really love to see someone else try. Another unrealized benefit to having the barrel on the bottom is that the top strap doesn't have to be very strong. So you could potentially make an extra low optic cut and get a dot on a revolver that doesn't feel like it's floating 6 inches above the gun. Now, I'm not an engineer. There might be some very good reasons these features are not more common, but the point is there have been genuinely innovative ideas in the revolver world. Most of them failed, not because the concepts were bad, but because of stuff like poor execution, bad timing, or unrealistic pricing. Today's manufacturing technology and renewed demand could make at least some of these ideas viable again. But instead of learning from these examples and pushing forward, most manufacturers have retreated to making the same safe bets over and over again. Let's see how each of the big revolver makers are doing on innovation. We're going to start with Smith & Wesson, and I'm going to be extra hard on them because they're my favorite and I want them to be good. They made huge strides in lightweight materials starting in the late 90s. They found that the addition of roughly 0.1% scandium to their aluminum alloy frames would allow the guns to withstand much higher pressures. They also made some models with titanium cylinders to further decrease weight. By the mid-2000s, they made a lightweight version of several of their revolvers. Now, there are some cartridges that no one should ever try to fire out of a 12-ounce gun, but when paired with the right ammo, these lightweight models are excellent for all-day carry. Unfortunately, the timing was terrible, and except for some small frame models, they pretty much stopped trying anything new about 15 or 20 years ago. Like I mentioned earlier, they don't make lightweight medium frame revolvers anymore. They still have 3 lightweight large frame 357s and 1 44 Magnum, but nothing has changed there in several years. When the TRR8 and the nearly identical M&P R8 came out in 2006, they really looked like the revolvers of the future with Picatinny optic rails and light rails. They still make them today, and they're exactly the same. 5 inches is still the only barrel option. There is no low profile red dot mount. The light mount is still too far forward to actually be practical. They made an exciting first draft and never came back to finish it. Another forward-thinking attempt was the Night Guard line of carry revolvers in 2008. Lightweight scandium aluminum frames, tritium front sight, 2.5-inch barrels. But again, the timing was wrong and they were expensive, and there were too many models. I think it's time to bring back the Night Guards, but streamline the options and update some of the features. And please make one of them the 315, the K-frame 38 special. They only made like 500 of them the first time around. That's the Goldilocks revolver a lot of us have been waiting for, and I'll be your best friend if you do it as a 7-shot 32 H&R Magnum. Okay, how about Ruger? I have to give credit here where it's due. They've given us the most innovative revolver design of the century so far, the LCR. 2-piece frame with a polymer lower, lightweight, excellent trigger, extremely durable and shootable. They've expanded the calibers since the initial launch, and there are some 3-inch models now, but we need more follow-through. Where is the medium frame version? We need a LMR revolver. And why stop there? Ruger's manufacturing capabilities are incredible. They could do modular systems that would make Dan Wesson jealous. Imagine a polymer lower that could accept different barrel cylinder combinations. They have the engineering talent and the production capacity to pull it off. Does it sound too radical? Well, making a brand new polymer revolver in 2009 was pretty radical, and that idea seems to have paid off. Taurus also deserves some credit for their Toro optics-ready revolvers, but not too much credit. At the end of the day, these are basically standard Taurus revolvers with a couple of holes drilled in the top strap and an optic plate in the box. But if we're lucky, this will encourage other revolver companies to offer their own optic-ready options from the factory. Taurus has had some other novel concepts come and go this century, but most of them were more gimmick than innovation, like the Taurus Judge or the ill-fated Taurus View. Hopefully their new management will apply some of that outside-the-box thinking to more useful ideas. Colt is as traditional as it gets. If you want to market purely on nostalgia, that's fine, but I kind of wonder if that's enough to sustain the revolver division long term. Right now, they're essentially making variations of the guns they offered in the 80s. Ironically, Colt used to be one of the big innovators, and I don't just mean Sam Colt's original 6-shooter. The Cobra was the first commercially available aluminum frame revolver back in 1950. When they relaunched it in 2017, it was a steel frame gun, and all the revolvers they've released since have been steel. As far as I can tell, they've got one version of the Python that comes with a night sight, and their triggers are pretty nice, but those are the closest things I can see to progress in their lineup. There's not just one direction for the future of revolvers. There are dozens of exciting possibilities, modular systems, new frame sizes, forgotten cartridges, better materials. each manufacturer could kind of stake out their own piece of this market. So here's my challenge to the industry. Stop playing it safe. Stop rehashing the same designs from 50 years ago. Build something that makes us excited about revolvers again. Build the guns that should exist, but do not. Until then, everybody keep shooting your old revolvers. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.